This sitting is resumed.
Order number 7, sir. In the name of the Honourable Minister of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, to move the passing of a resolution to approve in accordance with Section 5 of the Crown Lands Investing and Disposal Act, Chapter 225, the lease to the Barbados National Oil Company Limited of a parcel of land, property of the state, situate at Ferry Valley in the parish of Christchurch in this island, for the purpose of a solar photovoltaic power plant and a battery storage system.
Honorable Member for St. George South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and members of the Lower Chamber. Speaker, I rise to introduce this resolution pertaining to the lease of 14 acres of land of the state at Fair Valley and Christchurch, to be not known to us as the Barbados National Oil Company Limited, for the purpose of erection of a photovoltaic plant and a battery storage system. And Mr. Speaker, before I get deep into the meat of the matter with respect to the land aspect of this resolution, if there was a time, Mr. Speaker, that any country would want to invest or engage in a renewable energy revolution, it is now. And it has to occur now. Simply because, Mr. Speaker, the renewable energy sector is enjoying robust growth across the globe. In the UK, in Europe, if I may broaden that, due to the high cost of living and the high rise in crude oil prices, we are seeing a shift in government's energy policy from the dependence on fossil fuel to more renewable energy dependent. And as we journey to the US, the high international crude prices again is seen there. But the challenges that they face, just like the rest of the world, are the challenges with the war between Russia and the Ukraine. And this has pushed in the US gasoline prices to the highest ever. I think it's approaching over $5 a gallon. And this is causing tremendous challenges across the globe. So energy security concerns are paramount for governments, not only across the globe, but us here as a small nation, developing nation. And that is why he said, and I begin there, that if there was a time we needed to push towards renewable energy, it is now. But I want to take you on a little journey. I don't like to spend too much time dwelling in the history of what happened prior to 2007. But to say to this chamber and to say to the members and to the public, the chamber and to the public, in 2007, this said administration started the renewable energy revolution, the renewable energy economy. And why I've gone there, because we promised several things to the country at that time. And I recall sitting over there where the member for St. Lucie is sitting. And I think the Honourable member for St. Michael Southeast has just moved up to the leader of opposition business, government business. We sat next to each other. And we recall taking to task the Prime Minister and the members of a Democratic Labour Party-led administration for being in inertia, for being in a state of flux as it relates to the renewable energy sector. In those days, the opposition leader, now our Prime Minister, raised several concerns with BNOT and challenged the government of the day. Why don't you look at rebranding BNOT to change the name from Barbados National Oil Company Limited to Barbados National Energy Company Limited. And we did that in opposition. That was in 2013. But why I went there? Because between those years, when we pioneered the energy revolution in this country, between the years 2008, we demitted office. Between the period 2008 and 2018, 10 years, my famous phrase, the last decade. My good friend from St. James Central, I'm not as articulate as he is. And he spent this morning dissecting, disarming, doing all the necessary that will give the public the understanding that not only in the renewable energy sector, but in the tourism sector, we had tremendous decline. And I recall making a statement at the last Minister of Tourism in the last administration, and the member for St. James Central laughed at the time when he was trying to lure visitors from Brazil. And he went to Brazil like Millie. There was an old song, Millie going to Brazil. And he went to Millie, poor Millie. Millie going to Brazil, oh Lord, poor Millie. With the wire whack around the waist and the razor cut up her face. That happened to him because he got no tourists. And we spent 2 days, I think. Member for St. Michael's South Central at the time. We now have a proper member, a proper representative for St. Michael's South Central who's in this chamber. But in those days, sorry to say, I don't want to say a practice pony because I hate to use those phrases, but we had a very good time learning the rudiments of parliamentary debates and engaging in robust combat and discussion with that government of the day, which was in flux. And the renewable energy sector took a turn for the worse after being pioneered by this last administration. And we saw, indeed, nothing being done. Not even the Barbados National Energy Policy was finalized. And the member for Christchurch East, he came in and he did justice in 2018 to that program. And I can stand here. I know the member for St. James Central will speak probably after me. He's given me that opportunity to say a little bit on that sector. I don't know as much as him. But I shadowed that sector briefly, and I understand a little bit of it. But at the end of the day, what we saw when we came to office, and I have our manifesto here, transforming Barbadians through renewable energy, pushing the renewable energy frontiers, giving our people the opportunity to have a stake in our development. And I will get to that shortly because the Barbados National Oil Company is in keeping with the Barbados National Energy Policy 2013 strategic objectives, which is aiming to ensure that Barbados become fossil-free reliant and 100% renewable energy and carbon neutral island state by 2030. And accordingly, the company is seeking to transform its operations, as articulated back then in 2013, to a renewable energy-focused company with an overall aim to make energy affordable to all. And that is why this government sees it fit to provide the necessary lands so we can engage not only in photovoltaic, but battery storage, and I will say a little bit about that. A key result of this venture would be to enhance socio-economic well-being of Barbadians with an improvement in the environment. Going green means that we will improve our environment, reduce our carbon footprint. And to ensure the success of these transformation strategies, BNOC has embarked on several renewable energy projects in wind, biomass, and solar. And presently, the company is offering solar photovoltaic packages, which includes domestic from 2 kilowatt up to 10 kilowatt, member for St. James Central. And they're also offering commercial systems between 25 to 499 kilowatts. And also they are getting into the utility grid, which is over the 500 plus kilowatt system. So BNOC is truly entrenching and ingrained in the transformation towards renewable energy. But I'm going to stay here because I have a lovely book here, Our Barbados, Winning Our Future, the Barbados Labour Party Manifesto 2020. And I know this has been made a document of the House. And we don't only talk it, but we live it. And we seek where possible to put all the systems in place to ensure that Barbados indeed, by 2030, and we set targets, and I will speak to that shortly, because we're in a world now, and we're in a political system, still the Westminster system, where we are judged by our people who send us here. And gone are the days when we as politicians and ministers and members of parliament going to just come to the public and come to these walls, the hollow chambers, to tell people, oh, we will do it, without giving them a time frame or without giving them certain parameters by which they can judge us. And if you look at what we are doing, we are transforming government. There is a CFR process, which is a performance management tool, commitment for results. So when we communicate in these walls, well, certainly myself and my colleagues, we like to give people deliverables, things that we'll do for them by a certain time frame. And I have no apology to make. If I commit to the people of this country with a target, and I have not achieved it, because you have to set key performance indicators by which you judge yourself and by which people judge you. Failing that, you're not doing justice to your parliamentary sojourn that the people have sent you here. Neither are you doing justice to building out this economy on all pillars of sustainable development. So I make no apology when I communicate this afternoon and in the future by giving target dates and targets. And I was criticized for giving one recently, but I stand by it when I say that within 4 months, the East-West houses, for those persons who suffer the effects of ELSA, will be completed. And those 49 persons that are out there waiting, I don't want to divert too much, but I had to say this, will be given the opportunity to live in peace and comfort and tranquility once again. And I give my commitment that within 4 to 6 months, and the article of the 5th of May, the press release, give that, and I stand by that as Minister of Housing, Lands and Maintenance and a member of this cabinet, that asks you people to judge us by our performance and not by our talk, by our actions and our ways. But Mr. Speaker, I go back to this lovely book that I pick up daily to read, and it speaks to making renewable energy work for all Bajans. The Barbados Labour Party will partner with credit unions and other credit institutions to equip, and we use 50,000 small homes across the island in here with solar panels and hurricane-resistant roofs. But the member for St. James Central, he will have his say on that. And he will tell you that the 50,000 small households or small homes is by no means unachievable. Actually, he has targeted more, and this government has targeted more than 50,000 small homes. Why? Because I began by speaking to the challenges in the global marketplace as it relates to high cost of living in Europe, high crude oil prices, and why we have to push this frontier of renewable energy along with other frontiers, but renewable energy is the discussion today, and housing. Why we have to push those frontiers, and that's why we have articulated in our manifesto that over 50,000 small homes across the island will be equipped with solar panels and hurricane resistance roof as a result of the challenges not only with crude oil rising prices, but with climate change. And that is a government that is seeking to protect and safeguard its citizens with respect to the best that we have to offer to address some of the international shock that we feel. And there's a saying, whenever the international world sneezes, we catch a cold. This program will not only create hundreds of work and business opportunities for young people, but it will ensure the significant reduction of electricity costs to our young people, to our people who live in homes, and it will also increase the home value. So when you equip a house with solar panels, you have enhanced that asset. You're giving the average man who lives in a 600 square foot house, who for all wants and purposes, if they had to spend rent on that house, would be charged close to $1,000, a 2-bedroom house. This is the man that live in the Ivy. This is the man that live on Ellerton Main Road and in Greens. There's a man that live in Sargent Village and in Britton's Hill and in Bonnet, in Haynesville, in Pike Corner, Spikestown, Orange Hill, Crab Hill. Those are the people that live in those areas, the rural and urban corridors, who can't afford to have a mansion on top of a hill. But yet, they're paying high price for land, they're paying high prices to rent. And that is what the renewable energy revolution and the housing silent revolution is about. I don't want to say that we're not catering to the rich and famous. We have to. And I will speak to that later. But we have more of a challenge at a grassroots level and at a low to middle income level, whereby we have to ensure that the vulnerable and these people, the lower echelon of society, some may call them, but people I know with a lot of pride, member for St. Michael's, and whom we have to give the opportunity. You know, so this policy, in terms of making renewable energy for all, is one that is here to stay. And Mr. Speaker, this government continues to push the agenda both in the commercial and the residential sector. And that is why the Barbados National Oil Company is seeking to transition from an oil company. And I would like to see the day, and I'm speaking now to my good friend and colleague who share the same vision. I would like to see the day when the Barbados National Oil Company is rebranded. They're doing things to show that they've shifted the focus from fossil fuel reliant to renewable energy. We can rebrand them and call them the Barbados National Energy Company Limited. He can find the name, that's just the name that we promulgated to the last government when we sat over there by the member for St. Lucie, the member for St. Michael's, and the member for St. Andrew, when we sat over there, and they sat over here. Those are some of the policy initiatives and the enunciations that we made to our people. And I will live to see the day, Mr. Member for Christchurch, for St. James Central, who lives in Christchurch? I ain't wrong. When we can speak to rebranding this. But, Mr. Speaker, let me go on, because the Barbados National Oil Company Limited advised, and I'm speaking now to the resolution, advised the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance Since 2005, they have been maintaining 13 acres of land adjacent to the Barbados National Terminal Company Limited. This is at Ferry Valley in Christchurch. And they are maintaining this land through the services of the National Conservation Commission. And the company had indicated that it was incurring a debushing cost of some $8,000 to enhance security and improve the overall aesthetics of the property, the surrounding. And they're here now leasing the property. And the reason why it is here, because this project has been given the full endorsement of the Cabinet of Barbados, and it has been funded by the Inter-American Development Bank. And I'm being told it's a 5-megawatt plant that involves battery storage. And you know, I don't want to go too much into the technical details because the member for St. James Central, I want him to speak, and I love to listen to him. You know, and he graced us with his presence this morning, not just with talk, but with commitments and the history and the challenges that we face, ably supported by the member for St. Thomas. And indeed, it was a wonderful debate. But, Mr. Speaker, when we speak about battery storage, you know, some of the notes that I made here, and I am very comfortable with speaking on it because we have an estimated 250 megawatt of installed capacity for battery storage, right? Yesterday we met with the Barbados Light and Power Company Limited, and the member for St. James Central, he piloted a paper that speaks to 50,000 plus households in terms of putting photovoltaic systems on them. And our Prime Minister, as she is always a step ahead, engaged the Barbados Light and Power Company Limited with respect to storage. How can we build out or become 100% renewable, efficient economy without engaging in battery storage? And we are following the Barbados Light and Power Company Limited, the plant that is at St. Lucie. I think that is a 10 megawatt plant that has, I think, about 5 megawatts of battery storage. Tesla batteries. So that is how you are going to build out this renewable energy sector. If you need to really give the ordinary Barbadian a stake into this renewable energy drive and the economic trajectory that we are on as we push this frontier of renewable energy, we have to factor in battery storage as part of our renewable energy policy so that we can get away from the energy mix can transition from purely intermittent to focus on firmer renewable energy capacity. Because if you don't have battery storage, and the member who speaks to the cabinet on it, he's here now, and I know he'll speak on this, the member for Christchurch East, former Minister of Energy. Because if you don't have battery storage, the intermittent nature of our renewable, our photovoltaic, and our wind as well, does not give us that security, and you have a higher element of risk that we need to build out with battery storage. And that is where we are as a government. So our energy policy speaks to factoring in battery storage into our energy mix as we seek to move from our intermittent and transition to more reliable and consistent renewable energy capacities. So this project signals government commitment, yet again, to take the lead in commercial deployment of storage solutions in the electricity sector, apart from the Barbados Light and Power Company Limited. So we are the second to the draw in terms of battery storage. And I congratulate the minister, member for St. James Central, for the work that he's doing with BNOC. And I also congratulate the member for Christchurch East for the work that he started with BNOC. An holistic approach to building out this key sector. So, Mr. Speaker, this 14 acres of land will be leased at a rate of 32 cents per square foot. And we know that equates to like $197,518 per annum. But I would say to you, when you look at this government's renewable energy trust and the commitment to transitioning to 100% renewable by 2030, the Transport Board recently, the current Minister of Health, I am battling with the constituency, St. Michael West Central. We have taken the lead in the renewable energy transportation sector. We have purchased some 49 electric buses. Right, member for St. Michael West Central? There are 49. And we are buying another 10. Show me another country in the Caribbean or even the, where you want to say, South America, who has embarked on such a robust and radical shift to electrical vehicles and buses. Show me one. But we can speak to promises made between 2008 and 2018. We can speak to it by the last administration. And we must not let the people of this country forget. All they had to show was what? Member for Christchurch East. Some plasma gasification plant that would have ripped the hell out of taxpayers as it relates to electricity bills. The cost was to be passed on to you, the people of this country, the members in this chamber, and to you, Mr. Speaker, and to your staff. You would have had to endure light bills by 40%, electricity bills, as a result of the promulgation and the work that they started on a plasma gasification plant that, despite it was not built, it cost the taxpayers millions of dollars in studies and legal work, did not get off the ground. But in a short space of time, in less than 4 years, member for St. Michael West Central, he should raise his hand and take a bow, not in this chamber though, when we get outside. 49 buses, electric buses. He worked closely with the member for St. James North, for St. George North, head of the trade union movement, in seeking to right-size the workers' rights. If that's a phrase, right-size workers' rights. UCAL. And I recall sitting with them when I occupied the chair as Minister of Commerce and Small Business to form that cooperative so that workers can become enfranchised. This is all the work that we did because we recognize that it is not just a shift in how we do business, but we have to carry along people with us. And it's about enfranchisement and empowerment of working class people. Whether it's through renewable energy or it's through housing, which I will dive into shortly, those are some of the areas that we have pushed. Now, Mr. Speaker, despite my focus on renewable energy over the last 10 minutes, this is a housing resolution. And I want to thank the members of that ministry. This work started in 2020 by the member for Christchurch West. and we have now finished this critical work. Because there are some who believe that Barbados will be a concrete jungle because of the commitment we have made to build over 10,000 houses as we fly over Barbados. But that is not so. Because the lands we have, despite we have allocated lands for over, I would just leave it as over 10,000 houses for now. But there are exciting times coming. And I will speak to some shortly. I think I have my documentation that I can speak to some shortly. Let me lay it out here. There are exciting times coming in this country, such that a 10,000 housing silent revolution, housing revolution, is not beyond us, contrary to the naysayers and those who occupy the call-in program that are negative. And as you make some pronouncement as a government, we can see the light of the day. They want to know if we're Houdini, if I am Houdini. You know, one of my colleagues too questioned me and asked me if I think we can do it. But I like to put pen to paper, and I'm happy that we have the CFR. While I can't make this a document of the House, because I will be subject to the wrath of the member for St. Michael Northeast, I can speak from it, because this has not reached cabinet as yet. But we have done work, tremendous work over the last month. This document that I have here speaks to 4 years in constructing over 11,500 homes. We have begun to transition Barbados from owning a piece of the rock to owning your own home. The work was started by the member for Christchurch West, senior minister responsible for infrastructure. So we liaise on a regular basis. Up to today, we went on a site visit. That's what we do. We are here at Parliament doing the people's business, but we still took time out to go and look at a housing project that I will speak to shortly. And I take my entry here into housing. You know, recently I made a press release, and I'm going to go here firstly, because whenever you recognize that you have given the country a commitment and it has not gone as planned, you have a duty. And I learned that from the Prime Minister and some of my colleagues, both senior and colleagues who came in with me. You have a duty to go back to the public and speak with them, not to them, with them, and let them know what has gone wrong. We form a partnership with East West Company, East West Barbados, to import structures to construct 150 houses, some of which, they were imported from China. 150 to construct 150 houses, some of which would be used to address those persons who suffered the wrath of the freak storm and Hurricane Elsa back in June 2021 and July 2021. As we rationalize from September to present, several things happened. They had flood in China. They had several things that I spoke about. We couldn't get visas for the workers. Several things impacted. Then we went into election. I don't even want to use COVID, because COVID is here to stay, and we have to live with it and work with it, work around it, through it. And we are here, so we can't use COVID as an excuse. Probably then we didn't know how to address the challenges with it. And those houses came. Persons are still suffering the effects of Hurricane Elsa and the freak storm. I want to thank the member for St. Thomas and also the member for St. Michael South who's now the Minister of People's Empowerment and Elder Affairs, who found accommodation for over 397 persons. I want to thank the Ministry, National Housing Corporation, and the Ministry of Housing and those officers before my time who are still looking for accommodation and who've housed over 40 persons thus far within national housing, urban development, and rural. We live in a small space, small geographic location. Persons expect us to house. The freak storm and Hurricane Elsa, when we put our numbers together back in September, there were roughly around 1,000. Many were added, and we are now up to 1,494 after rationalizing everything. And I've promised the people of this country, and I'll promise them again, I need to be judged. Judge me by my actions and my performance. And if I fail you, I am man enough to come back and say to you, the people, we have not achieved our targets. We have to set targets. I can't sit down like the last government and allow everything to fly in the sky, pie in the sky, and say, oh, okay, we can get done, we can get done. No commitment to the people. But I made a commitment. I'm being criticized for it, 4 to 6 months. But I am telling you that I am on the way to making sure that those 49 persons that we have rationalized for housing through the East-West program, the Chinese houses, will be in their houses within the 4-month period. Because we go to work every day with this on our shoulders and in our hearts, that there are people that look like me and look like you, and they have children that look like me and look like you. And why I'm saying that, you know, I have an extract that I want to read. These are some notes that I took from. I'm not going to make this a document of the House. But these are some notes that I took from John F. Kennedy, who said that a home is the first and foremost essential organizing unit of a society, where we raise families, we vote, and we pay taxes. He said that. John F. Kennedy is the most central organizing unit of our society. He also said that many things revolve around having a good quality housing, including education, health, and wealth creation. When your children leave school, where do they go? Or where they leave from to go to school? They leave from a home. So when they come from home and you have to do the homework, you don't send them to any community center. Those who have to go there because of their unfortunate and vulnerable situation go there. But the majority of us, our children, come to our home. Poor housing is associated with ill health, and poor housing is associated with social decay. So that is why I can come to this chamber, led by my Prime Minister, and say to the public that the East-West houses, the Chinese houses, we will have ready for the 49 persons. And the member for Christchurch West, who is helping me, I should say assisting me, and I thank you. We will have those persons housed. But Mr. Speaker, the trust today is renewable energy and housing. And I want to marry the two now because, you know, back in 2020, we formed what we call the Hope Home Ownership Program, Hope Inc., whereby, Mr. Speaker, we recognize that we needed to utilize photovoltaic to provide homes for our many people. And I have the Hope Inc., which will build some 4,000 to 5,000 of the houses over the 5-year period. They have embarked upon the construction of houses are areas of Lancaster and Poole and St. John, utilizing renewable energy on the roof to offset the cost to our many citizens of this country. And I made a few notes because when you have a lot that costs $80,000 and you have not factored in the cost of the lot, but you can get a house, a 3-bedroom house, a 2-bedroom house, sorry, and pay a mortgage of $797 in this country. And you can also get a 3-bedroom house. The price of the house is $220,000. And you can pay a mortgage of $1,010 in this country. We as a government formed the commercial state-owned enterprise called the Hope, Inc., where we are utilizing photovoltaic to offset the cost. So the photovoltaic that we're using would cover the cost of the land as well as cover the cost of the infrastructure. So you're only paying the cost of the home to live in it. A 3-bedroom costs $172,000. Sorry, a 2-bedroom $172,000, and a 3-bedroom at a cost of $220,000. But if you add the land to the 2-bedroom, you get a value of $252,000. Where in this country, or where in this country, other than now, can you pay a mortgage of $797 for a 2-bedroom house? Where? We formed the commercial state-owned entity, Hope Inc., to cater to persons in the income bracket, net income bracket, between $2,000 to $4,000 monthly. Like the policemen, the nurses, the gas station workers, the supervisors, civil servants. These are the persons who will be able to own a home. And we have also categorized other areas, persons earning less than $2,000 net, under the Hope Advance. And I just came from visiting a house with the Deputy Prime Minister member for St. Michael's South East and the member for Christchurch West. A hardwood house where we recognize, and the members of National Housing, thank you, Chairman of National Housing, we are serious about this. Because when we move it with the entire team. Because many hands make light work, and many brains think differently, and we get a lot of ideas. We are now at the stage of costing that home for low-income earners. And once the price is right, that used to be a show. The price is right. We will import by the thousand. So when you sit and you tell me that we can't build 1,000 homes, 10,000 plus homes, that's the minimum. We're going beyond that. And those persons earning less than $2,000 a month net, and who are paying rent of $1,000 for a 600 square foot home, member for Christchurch West, you have those numbers. And we will put photovoltaic on those houses because we are looking at the extent to which the carrying capacity, the size, how much square foot we said today? Yeah, but the roof, the take for the photovoltaic. 600 square foot, but the photovoltaic may not take all 600, but there were a minimum number of panels. 20 panels. 20 panels. We're preparing our working class people to come out of the rental mode, to own their own homes and provide for their families and their children who we know will want to go to university, when they're paying rent of $1,000, when you can transition them with renewable energy, give them the investment, and then even if you take it for 10 years, those photovoltaic systems have a lifetime of 20 years, so you can give them back 10 years after to make money. But you're lowering the costs for them. Instead of paying $1,000 in rent for that facility, they can be paying $400 to $500 in a mortgage. We are transitioning Barbados. That's why it's called a silent housing revolution. We want to take those persons out of the densely populated housing estates and allow them to own their own homes. Yes, we will have some who by nature, which is a small percentage, can't own their own homes. So we would have to engage in rent-to-own facilities. But this will take a drain off of us as a government, off of our balance sheet. Member for Christchurch, East Central. So this is the revolution that we are talking about. This is the discussion that the member for St. Michael East and I had. How do we enfranchise and empower our people? $1,000 can transition into $400 to a home. You know, it's extra $600 that you can spend on your children. That is what this is about. So the Hope Ownership, Hope Inc. program, Hope Ownership program, utilizing renewable energy on the roof to offset the cost. You don't have no legal fees. You get away from legal fees. No deposit in the bank. It is a very good process. It's a good proposition. It's a good project. But we also have the East-West project, the Chinese partnership, to send in soon from now 1,000 homes. And the home in Queen's Park that is being erected as a show house for AgriFest. And I urge all members to go and have a look at it. We went there today. That is how we are going to empower our people, take them out of the rental zone and put them into the home ownership zone. We still have to cater for some persons who are earning just over $4,000 net. There's some teachers, and I know the member for St. George North would know this within the trade union arm, and UPW also. Some teachers earn more than $4,000 net. So we are trying. Soon from now, I will bring a paper to cabinet. We will increase that threshold for the Hope Inc. from $2,000 to $4,000 up to $2,000 to $5,000. We will capture that group who have been left out. But I want to get into numbers because recently they had 2 show homes at Lancaster where Hope Inc. is building 160 homes. This year alone, Hope Inc. is focusing on building close to 700 homes. And in the second year, with the availability of land, they will triple that. But they are oversubscribed. You have 160 homes at Lancaster, but 300 of applications for houses. Now, there are other sites, and that is what I want to say to the public. 160 persons out of those 3,000 applications will get homes within the first 8 months. But they are building some 5,000 houses, 4,000 to 5,000 homes. Lands at Searles, some 30 acres. Lands at Vineyard in St. Philip, 100 acres. They've started a project at Pool in St. John, where they will be building 515 houses, single and townhouses, so we can increase the density, we can get more persons on that piece of land. They're also building homes at Colleton in St. Lucie. I mentioned Searles in Christchurch, Vineyard in St. Philip, Tawes in St. John. And when you add up those, that's 3,060 homes thus far. So you have 3,000 applications. You might not be able to get a home within the first 8 months. But I'm saying to you, there are other options, because there's the private sector-led part of this 10,000 plus project, you know. I have only catered here in this 11,500 master plan to joint partnerships through the ministry and national housing. But those private entities we have not factored in, and the member for Christchurch West, we will sit, because this has to go to cabinet after we sit and we come up with the private applications within town and country planning. And I believe we can build 20,000. That's my belief. We need to get the administrative process right, and we can do it. Many said we can do certain things. Some said we can win 36 either, and we did it twice. First time in the history. I am not one you can say to me I can't get it done. Because I believe people went to Mars, right, member for St. Michael East. And I'm speaking to you because you are right in front of me. People went to Mars. When others said they couldn't do it, there were persons who have went into the moon, the moon, in the moon. Yeah, sorry, when it got me flowing. Person said Carrollton Cummins couldn't invent a battery, a Bajan. Now we are looking to him to lead the charge on battery storage in this country. So when you look at a government that is innovative and creative and like to push all envelopes, and you're going to tell me that we can't build 10,000 houses, but we're going past that here. Once we get the administrative process detailed, we will create history like we have done since 2018. And history will be created again. We wanted to within the renewable energy sector, but something happened back in 2008 that we can't explain. Right, member for St. Michael East? Member for St. James North? We can't explain what happened back in 2008. But here we are, though, leading that renewable energy revolution and also leading the silent housing revolution. But I want to say that despite what the naysayers will say, the banking sector is pretty liquid. The banking sector has put out there that they have $1 billion to invest in loans to build up this sector. $1 billion, that's for the whole alone. The credit unions have also come on board with us. The member for Christchurch East Central is smiling. They have come on board with us because part of the 50,000 plus small homes, photovoltaic systems that we intend to push in this country starting this year, those lending institutions are on board with us. I said we can build over 20,000, which is a stretch target. But that is why we are looking, I mean, commitment and communication for results. You might say 20,000, but you fall short. But for sure, you're going over 10,000. And the member for St. Michael Southeast, she can tell you where she worked. South Central, sorry. She can tell you when she worked at her international organizations, whether CDB. You had to set targets, and you were judged on your targets. We can't get away from setting targets. Some are stretch targets. But how do you extend yourself and go beyond what we call the basic threshold to reach your maximum? in terms of capacity and efficiency, you have to set targets. And I make no apology for setting the 10,000 target. And I make no apology for saying that if we exceed it, and if we get the lands sorted within the time frame, we can go way beyond the 10,000. And I've communicated to the public that the 49 persons will be back in their homes with East-West houses. As I speak to you, a foundation is going up in the area of Watts Village, St. George, in my constituency. And I'm not biased. I just happened to hear that today, one of the East-West houses. I just happened to hear that today. I'm not biased. And I can go on and on and on and on with this silent revolution. This year we intend to construct 1,400 homes. Allens Court, that's at White Park. The member for the city, you will have 20 units available to you before September. The revolution has started, you know. Parish land extension, where we are beginning to move persons from Rock Hall. This government came into office, brought to cabinet, brought to parliament. We will relocate the persons from Rock Hall. And we are starting next week. As I speak to you, on Monday, I'll be going to Rock Hall. 22 houses from the parish land extension. Single detached. We're relocating persons below the poverty line. But you know, when we relocate them, I send in the message now. And I behaving like the Prime Minister. Don't go up there and mount no more houses. We have demarcated the area. No more houses will build in Rock Hall. It's an environmental hazard up there. And an accident waiting to happen. And we are relocating. Work started by the member for Christchurch West. I am carrying on the work. So you will join me, member, on Monday as we seek to demolish and relocate 7 to 8 houses, structures. And the persons, we have consultants working with them. So they know that is in the constituency of the member for St. Philip South. And they know. Parish land extension, another 20. We're doing Coconut Hall. You assemble an East-West house or 2 down Coconut Hall in St. Lucie. Farmers in St. Thomas. We have relocated persons from White Hill. Member for St. Andrew. I visited this week. I'm on the road every day looking at houses to make sure that my working class people are addressed, these challenges. And we will move 3 because we were snagging the house. You understand what I mean by snagging? When you look at the finite details before you're moving in, you have to go and look at the finite details to make sure that the counter is clean, to make sure that there's no tiles coming up, so that when those residents from White Hill move in to farmers in those 3 houses, they have no issues. Make sure that the wiring is intact, coded to the right code, the American standard. We snag. Those are the things that we're doing. Help is close at hand. Applewick's in St. George. Member for St. George North. We have persons, as the Prime Minister said, clean up the backlog. I went to the National Housing Corporation and carried on the work from the member for Christchurch West again, and we cleaned up the backlog of over 25,000 applicants for housing. So you want to tell me, in this country, we have over 25,000 applicants for housing. We have some 49 housing estates. We have land that we believe at this present stage can build over 12,000, 13,000 houses, the land availability. The only thing that can stop us is execution. So we have to detail our execution in a way that we execute with precision. And you want to tell me that we cannot cater to the 25,000 persons who applied for houses eons ago, over 30 years ago. I have been receiving phone calls from persons who told me, some call me, Dwight, Mr. Speaker, Dwight, I have applications in national housing 20 years now. I tell them, come and see me. And I call the officer responsible for customer service and I tell him, log this. I will bring to cabinet, as instructed by the Prime Minister, that list of backlog. And we will categorize them in terms of income brackets so that we can determine what category they fall in, and we will deal with that backlog. We have started. Now, you know, remember, I don't want to lose my train of thought because I am going back here, but I'm going to pause to deal with the carpenters and the artisans. I can get to Bullins. I can get to Bullins in St. James Central. Bullins is a property, please. Don't let me mix up what we're talking about in here. It's a property. It's in the constituency of St. James Central. But, Mr. Speaker, the member for Christchurch East, St. Michael East, is jogging me. He's pulling me out of the blocks. And I'm saying to him, 2 months ago, I met with over 300 artisans, builders in this country. Over 300 who are engaged, if they're not engaged with East West, they're engaged with Hope, they're engaged with Hurricane Elsa. We have put people back to work in this silent housing revolution. Name an artisan, you go around to an artisan today, we went with one, you know him very well. You see him, he wasn't here. Huh? The construction sector is working. So we have to give the workers something to do. So we have to build houses and repair houses. Yeah, we had a little lull with the Hurricane Elsa. And I'm the first to put up my hand and tell the people we're sorry for the delay in terms of payments. We're sorry for the delay in terms of getting back to them. But we have now a vibrant customer service within National Housing Corporation that goes to work daily to speak to people. We came to government, then it had no type of a revolution. We had the man from St. Philip North who all he knows is asking people for things, the wrong things. A house for a thing. A house for a thing. Or for something. Every house had a front.
Honourable member, don't cut the crease. Just don't cut the crease.
Thank you. Thank you. I am being encouraged by one of my mentors.
Don't follow my truth to do either,
Thank you,
honourable member.
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So I am back on track because we have employed over 400-500 artisans in this country and builders. We formed the cooperatives, the artisans cooperatives within that ministry, and the member don't let me forget. I formed that cooperative of artisans, the Artisans Cooperative, and I am pleased to say that there are artisans, contractors cooperative of contractors and artisans, and I'm pleased to say today on the floor of Parliament, they are part of the rebuilding process, and they are part of addressing the Hurricane Elsa issues in this country. Soon from now, it will be difficult to drive through St. George South and St. Michael East and St. James Central and St. Michael South East and find anybody sitting on the block, and St. George North and St. Lucie, based on what we are doing as a government. It is not about me, it is about empowering our people. And every single one of us, you heard the member for St. James Central, he spoke this morning and he will speak right after me, I think. And he will tell you how he's engaging inspectors, teaching people to become their own boss, entrepreneurship. The Prime Minister spoke to us this morning, and the first thing she said, See how you can transition most of those workers into owning their own businesses, being self-reliant, and transition them not only to work here, but to work overseas. You know, these are the things that we're doing as a government. West Terrace and Durance, Todd's St. George, we finished 15 in Todd's. They're fully occupied. Rice's in St. Philip. I spoke to Poole in St. John, every single parish, Sergeant's Village, Christchurch, Solaris Court, White Park Road, Exmouth, we have some land there we have not even factored into here. And this speaks to the problem of urban renewal. Urban renewal, and you see the member for St. Michael East shaking his head because he understands this. If there is a need for housing in this country, I am not taking away anything from rural Barbados. Rural Barbados has a need. The suburban corridor too. Member for St. Michael Southeast has a challenge in the largest housing estate in this country, major challenges. And we have acquired land at Lower Burney, 40 acres, a planning gains land to address the density issues within the Pine. And most are hers. I can't fight her for that. Most are the member for St. Michael Southeast. And when we talk about urban renewal, those densely populated areas, go back to the statement that I made. Poor housing is associated with what? Social decay and ill health. Some of our challenges that we see in this country are associated with the poor housing stock within that urban area. And I say to the people of this country today that we're addressing that problem through the urban renewal project. And we have identified land not only at Exmouth. We may have to, I know the Prime Minister don't like high rise, but she will give us the leverage and the leeway if we have to build high rise to put more people in. She like quads. She like those 2 floors, quads and duplexes, quadruplexes as 4 units. Hexplexes too, which is the 8, the 6 and the 8. And I'm saying to you, if we have to go to high rise to address the challenges with the urban renewal, and that is primary on my agenda, addressing the backlog of applicants and dealing with the urban renewal. Because when you look at greenfield in those areas, major challenges, I don't have to spell them out. What's the land there in Cat's Castle? You know, we are in a situation that if we do not address and get this silent revolution going. I spoke about the ill health and the social decay in our society as a result of poor housing. That is known. Literature, you can research anything. Literature, go anywhere. University of the West Indies, Oxford, Cambridge, anywhere. And you will see, even in secondary schools, those persons who are engaged in the social studies would tell you that once you have challenges with a housing stock and density issues, you're going to have social decay. You're going to have a rise in certain crime, ill health. So we have to prioritize urban renewal, and we have allocated some land for that. I heard the member for St. Thomas, who spoke about Allen View relocation. And I want to say to the people of St. Thomas and the people of Allen View, you have been factored into our year 2 plan. Allen View, 40 single detached unit. All you need is infrastructure, and we will make this a reality. I heard the member for St. Thomas spoke about it today, and we have it here on our plan. And this was done before my time coming to the ministry. So we will address those issues. So when we speak to urban renewal and we come to Hackett Hall and we're building some quads there, some duplexes, sorry. Hackett Hall, St. Michael. You have four duplexes going up now. Well, will be built, but we have quads now. We have quads there, but we will build some duplexes on the other side. We build 4 duplexes. And that will help address some of the density issues within St. Michael East and St. Michael Southeast. And I know that St. Michael East, with your challenge, member, we have not forgotten you. Because Lower Burnie will take care of you as well. And I know the good member for St. Michael Southeast, we have spoken about that. Even though you don't sit in the cabinet, you are a senior to me, and I have to look after you, sir. You have major challenges in St. Michael East. And I will address your issues, your housing issues in Lower Burnie, 40 acres. So we have looked at Barbados. We have studied it. And I'm saying to the members of this chamber, and I'm saying it to the public, despite this is a resolution to acquire to lease 14 acres of land for BNOC, I took the opportunity as Minister of Housing, Lands and Maintenance to go into some of the issues and some of the projects and our mandate as a ministry to build out the housing stock in this country. And I want to close by saying to you, while I didn't list every single project and every year, I hope I have been clear with respect to the Hope Inc. What's the focus of the Hope Inc.? How we're utilizing photovoltaic to give people the opportunity to own their own homes. Persons who could not have paid for 227,000 two-bedroom or a 285,000 three-bedroom house. They have the opportunity now to own their own homes. And Lancaster is not the only place. We have engaged Villa out of Guyana for hardwood houses. They look good. If I was a starter now, as an engineer, I would want one of those houses. They look lovely, and I challenge each and every one of you to go to AgriFest and take a look at the hardwood housing. We came from an era of chattel houses. So we know about hardwood. We know about building chattel houses and living in chattel houses. And they're aesthetically pleasing to the eyes. And I'm saying to you that we have different categories and different options available to our people. Those are not the only 3 persons that are building houses. We have the Hope Premium, Chancery Lane, building over 200 houses up there for persons earning over $5,000 per month net, $4,000 to $5,000 net over that. That's the upper middle income. So we are catering for every class. And the Ministry of Housing, we will ensure that we leave no one behind in this silent revolution. And Mr. Speaker, with those words, I beg that this resolution now pass.
Honourable Member St. James Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to associate myself with the comments of the honourable member who just piloted this bill, this resolution. And I want, Mr. Speaker, sir, to be very candid with this House today. The honourable member for St. George South has touched on a few very important points. And perhaps it should not go unnoticed that when he speaks about execution being a critical component of this journey, especially one where, as in this particular resolution, the Inter-American Development Bank provided $34 million to the government of Barbados for the deployment of cleaner fuels and renewable energy in particular. And we are here in 2022 at this juncture with respect to a loan that was made available to us in 2018. we, sir, have to be ever mindful that one of the first things we have to get right in Barbados is the need for us at all times to keep the foot on the accelerator and make sure that we can deliver, because the international lending institutions, I said it this morning, we are not the only game in town. And when once funding is made available, there must be execution, or you stand to run the risk of losing the project financing. Interestingly, the conversation that the Honourable Member had with this House took us to Greenfields and Cat's Castle. And once again, the record of the Democratic Labour Party is awful, and the state of disrepair that must be corrected yet again by this government intervening in the aftermath of disaster and mismanagement was felt in that area of Bridgetown where the funding was made available but was actually lost. And it's all right for them to parade up and down in George Street, and all is well with their souls, but the people who live it know it. The people who feel it know it. And the urban renewal, what in the old days used to be called slum clearance and repair, that, sir, is a challenge that must still be confronted and wrestled to the ground, because incompetent and inept men chose not to pay due attention when it was necessary, and the country suffered that loss. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, I begin on that note because I want, as I said, to be very candid about a number of things in this address. The Honourable Member, early in his address, touched on the fact that, and he's quite right again, every country in the world now, whether or not they're energy producers or otherwise, as in oil and gas producers, have taken a pause to reflect on what is happening before us in the Ukraine, what is happening with oil prices globally, what is happening, Mr. Speaker, with the consequential dislocation in terms of being able to access goods. Remember that Europe is a major industrial continent. Almost every major city in European countries is an industrial power, producing large amounts of product. But when you can't get natural gas to power your factories, it means, Mr. Speaker, sir, that there are substantial challenges in getting goods out of a major market, source market like Europe. And the rest of the world has started to suffer. And that is true also of the ability to get food out of the ports in Ukraine. So that, for example, wheat production in Ukraine is still going on, but it can't get none to the port. So if it can't get to the port, it can't get out there. And India told the world a couple of days ago that they're done exporting anything to anybody, because when it comes to wheat and grain, because they are now looking after themselves. They've got a billion people to feed. And this is the kind of dislocation that we are confronted with, Mr. Speaker, sir. And so therefore, I think it is important for us to recognize that in the context of a loan, $8.6 million of which is to procure services to acquire and install renewable energy systems, as the Honourable Member indicated, a 5-megawatt plant at the BNTCL, and also battery storage, that we are doing this, sir, in the context of an environment where we must, as a country, save the foreign exchange that we would otherwise burn on the importation of fossil fuels. And if you want to understand, get a snapshot of the kind of money we're talking about, in 2012, when we had a crisis to deal with internationally, we spent north of $800 million in importing fossil fuel into this country. We are dealing with another international crisis, which is putting us on a footing that if it does not get reined in, we will probably have to look at that type of money. And there's a lot that $1 billion could do in Barbados, $1 billion with a B, could do in Barbados, sir. And that is why you will feel and sense that there is a deliberate thrust in the direction of building out the renewable energy sector at a faster rate. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, it would be remiss of me not to emphasize the nature of what is going on in a more precise manner. The National Oil Company is taking the lead in this matter because the National Oil Company has to reconfigure its business model. The country is moving away from the importation of oil and gas. The country will be, certainly if I have anything to do with it, even before 2030, in a position where we will be looking at generating our economic activity, our industrial activity, lighting and operating our offices and our homes, sir, by way of renewable energy. Whether that is from wind, whether that is from solar photovoltaics, whether that is from biofuels, Mr. Speaker, sir, our transportation sector has to be transformed. We will transform it all. That is the intention. Now, the National Oil Company, sir, is not going to just disappear. It must position itself now to be at the core of new revenue streams. And that new revenue stream, in part, sir, is reflected by its involvement here, as now an energy company must do, getting involved in a renewable energy enterprise, a solar farm to be precise, where 5 megawatts of activity will take place. It don't end there. And I have told them that they have to be aggressive. Gone forever must be the days when the oil company or the NPC management feel they can sit back and don't worry because you got to import oil and gas and that company got to make money because you can't function without the oil and gas. You ought to get out there now, as, forgive the expression, but I'm going to be brutally frank with the house, some of the deep-pocketed white boys are doing. And every Sunday, you see them up and down Barbados. Don't pass a plantation yard without turning in to try to make inquiries as to whether they could get that land. You got 2 or 3 acres there, I wonder if we could rent it. They don't pass a car park, Mr. Speaker, sir, without trying to see if they could get the roof on the building next to the car park to rent the space. Because that is the entrepreneurial impulse that has been stimulated by people, on the part of people in Barbados who got deep pockets and who can move fast. And in this speech, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on speaking to this House in a candid manner about the economic opportunity and the and the policy intervention that has to take place if we are going to guard the people who sent us here to be guardians of the economy in the way that their interests must be guarded, sir. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, tomorrow, the Chief Operating Officer of Emira Capital will arrive in Barbados, as I understand it. And the General Secretary of the Barbados Workers' Union and the people who are in charge of the National Oil Company will, I anticipate, begin the conclusion, begin the ending of discussions. I say to the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister who sits to my left, that on Thursday I may have to seek leave from the cabinet meeting so that I can participate in what I hope to be the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding that will allow now the Barbados Workers' Union to be a partner with the Barbados National Oil Company in laying out 10 megawatts of solar photovoltaic so that the Barbados Workers' Union, representing as it does the workers of this country, can be party to that process as stakeholders in energy transformations. Because we can't do this without taking along with us the working class people of Barbados who, in their numbers, overwhelmingly sent us here. Now, Mr. Speaker, conscientious students of public affairs would tell you that you read the Hansard. I do not know, I did when I was in the early stages of being an MP. I do not know if those who are at that stage read Hansard anymore. But if you do, you read you will confront a very curious trend with respect to debates on housing resolutions. They tend, Mr. Speaker, sir, to be a very regimented, almost blinkered and restricted approach. It is as though a no entry sign has been posted somewhere that you don't necessarily see from your chair, sir. But it urges, there's a tendency not to go beyond a certain comfort zone. 20 years of doing this, sir, I have seen it over and over again. You can hear some arithmetic calculations, some rudimentary project description, the financial impact assessment on a project, sir, and then you can hear about the community needs. That approach, if followed this evening, I feel would be sterile. And it would be a waste of a glorious opportunity to talk to this country about something that is fundamental to its well-being. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm going to speak in that way to you today. The renewable energy sector is poised to deliver to Barbados $2.5 billion United States dollars, sir, in investment across a mix of energy opportunities. Solar photovoltaics is one, onshore wind farms another, but in a limited way, because the Prime Minister is very sensitive about the lack of an ability to avoid completely the dislocation in communities that may come about as a result of the wind farm. But we will have 1 or 2 wind farms in Barbados. In addition to that, there's going to be offshore wind, because we have 400 times the amount of offshore space than we got land space. And the big money in investment is offshore wind investment. And Mr. Speaker, sir, there's obviously going to be biomass. No, Mr. Speaker, beyond that, there's obviously a move across the world to go in the direction of hydrogen. And my friend, the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, is constantly urging that we be mindful of the fact that there is a limited life to the solar voltaic, the batteries which we use with solar voltaics, and lithium, and the lithium batteries will have to be disposed of and reused in a different way, and that we may as well try to get to hydrogen as quickly as possible. And that is true, sir, with respect to all elements of energy generation, because hydrogen, once the technology allows us, is probably the happiest of the end results that human beings across the world can forecast. So we don't rule that option out either. No other sector, however, Mr. Speaker, as I stand before you now, is capable of triggering or unlocking that kind of investment in new activity immediately. And that's the reality. There is no other sector in Barbados today that is capable at this juncture of unlocking that level of investment. And so therefore it makes good sense for a government that is serious about trying to get us into a flight path as we come out of the doldrums of a pandemic recession type situation, sir. Not that Barbados was in a recession, but that the world. That we must now, sir, get into an uptick which is as quick and as fluid as is possible. This Parliament often sells itself short. And I say to my colleagues in here that I want to be candid with them all. We bore witness to history. We bore witness to human history on the 14th of March this year, when for the first time anywhere, and I invite anybody within earshot of my voice to challenge the accuracy of my submission, for the first time in human history, Mr. Speaker, a Prime Minister and Minister of Finance stood before the Parliament of her country on the 14th of March and gave a right to every citizen who is a householder to own and install photovoltaic systems at their homes. I invite honourable members to reflect on it. Now, she said in some way Barbadians have come to the point where in the same way that we enjoy free education as of right, the ownership of a solar panel or an RE system is now a right that is conferred on every residential householder. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, it was a historic moment. The naysayers and the critics out there who have their own agenda will not be persons whose lips will part to say this to anybody, because they have their own narrow purpose and agenda. But we, Mr. Speaker, sir, have to tell our own story. And the Parliament in your lifetime, Mr. Speaker, sir, has seen itself abused by ministers of finance. And part of why we are here today, and I can stand here as Minister of Energy and have the National Oil Company at the heart of, $8.6 million investment, that I could say that tomorrow the Barbados Workers Union and the same National Oil Company will partner with the Mirror Capital at the table to conclude arrangements on a 10-megawatt investment, Mr. Speaker, sir. The same way I can say that against the backdrop of what the Prime Minister has said must happen for Barbadian householders, sir, demonstrates the difference between this government and those pretenders who languish on the outside. There's a reason why they haven't won a seat in Barbados since the year 2013. There's a reason why they have not won a seat in Barbados since the year 2013. Mr. Speaker, in your lifetime, this Parliament bore witness to the calamitous incompetence of an administration that came here and declared that there will be a tax on bicycles, but could not implement it. You recall that? Yeah. This Parliament, sir, bore witness to the ignominious, sir, ineptitude of an administration that came here and announced a tax on cell phones, but they couldn't implement it. You remember that? Yeah. And Mr. Speaker, sir, it was the egregious inefficiency of a Minister of Finance from that former administration that announced and implemented a solid waste tax that was not only unsustainable, but it caused public unrest and public protests in this country. Let's not forget these things, Mr. Speaker, sir. And what we have done instead is to use the budget opportunity of the 14th of March in order to empower people who would otherwise be dispossessed and to enfranchise those people, sir, who are otherwise excluded. Now, I make no apology for speaking in this way, because part of this energy transformation story has to be laid bare. Those who are financially well off are crowding the doors of the Ministry of Energy, as is their right, in order to participate not only for their share, but to get more than their share if they could. And why do they do it? Because they understand, as the Prime Minister outlined, it is in the budget, it is almost as if you are going to heaven without having to die. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, sir, that it is one of the finest forms of return on investment to be found in Barbados at any time. He to whom I usually turn immediately for financial advice is nodding his head as I speak. No, Mr. Speaker, sir, history must not be repeated. Let us break this thing down so that everybody can understand what we're talking about. You know, we were a slave society, sir, and we came to a point of abolition. But then after that, there was an oligarchy who enjoyed all of the fruits of labor. All. The people that I represent, sir, that come from Hoyts village and come from Torps, sir, their ancestors had no seat at the financial table back then. They had none. That was the way it was ordered, and it remained that way. When we got to the 30s, Mr. Speaker, in the 20s, by the time you get to the 30s, you had the People's Principle Resistance. There are some who call it riots, but I know that the people had principled resistance. And a riot would have you believe that this was just some spontaneous bad behavior, because that is what the writers of the architects of history would want us to believe about our forefathers. But it was a principled resistance to structure that was horrific in nature. And Mr. Speaker, sir, those people would have understood a sugarcane economy where sugar was the lead sector, but they were not participants in the financial fruits of it. They didn't understand the taste of the financial fruit, sir. They sat around the table and watched people live large in the hope of getting a crumb. There was no seat at the table for the people that I represent, Mr. Speaker, sir, in Redmond Village, or in Arch Hall, or in Seaview, in the power constituency of St. James Central. Then, Mr. Speaker, sir, by the time the 70s came along, the tourism sector was booming in Barbados, and Mr. Speaker, sir, there were a new set of people. The tourism titans had arrived, but there was no seat at the table, the financial table, for the people that I represent in Prospect or in Fitz Village, Mr. Speaker, sir. That has been the story of economic development in Barbados. They get angry when you say this, but it is a fact. It is an incontestable and irrevertible fact. And Mr. Speaker, sir, it don't end there, because then we had an international business and financial services sector, global business enterprise and financial services, the order of the day, wealth management. That's what Barbados is doing. But where are the people from the Ivy, Mr. Speaker, sir? Where are the people from the Pine? Where are the people from Paynes Bay? No, sir, we cannot fail once again to reserve a seat at the table for the ordinary black people of Barbados who send us to this place. That is my position. They cannot be reduced. They cannot be reduced to being second-class citizens in the land of their birth. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, that is what is so unique and special, because that which the Prime Minister articulated in March during the budget speech is not to be replicated anywhere in this hemisphere, or at the best of my knowledge, in the world. What has been the history of renewable energy, sir? That journey has been that those who are able to grasp it, grab it with both hands, and that you have then a division, a technological divide. There are some people who can afford it, and they get access to cheap resources of energy. And that means their life is easier, and they're selling into a grid and getting profit, and their home and their office and all of their investments that got a roof is making money for them. They ain't got to do a thing. Some of them don't even go work no more, sir. The house makes money for me. Why would I do anything? Except get more greedy. And then, Mr. Speaker, sir, there are those who will never be able to get there because the cost of accessing the technology is so high. Now, this has to be avoided. That technological divide has to be avoided at all cost. Now, sir, I am happy to say that the budget was the 14th or 15th of March. Today is the 17th of May. April, May, 2 months. Within that 2 months, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have come to the Cabinet of Barbados. And the Cabinet of Barbados has had an opportunity to consider a concept paper on how we will execute a right to renewable energy for the people of Barbados who are householders. Beginning first with the owner-occupied homes, and then the rentals, Mr. Speaker. The Cabinet has requested of me further refinement. And you would have heard the Honourable Member who piloted this bill indicate that 50,000 homes that we originally conceived was, in the judgment of the Prime Minister, too conservative. And that we need to go the full gamut of trying to find a way of embracing every residential home in Barbados in accordance with a policy that truly reflects that, just like free education, if you want it, you can access it. And that is what we are trying to do with energy. And as I said before, sir, it is an approach that is so universal that it is not to be matched by any other country, not only in this region or only in this hemisphere, but across the world. Now, Mr. Speaker, key participants have also been brought to the table and consulted. The Government Electrical Engineering Department. Because the Government Electrical Engineering Department has the unique responsibility in this process of having to approve every design. And the Honourable Member, who is the Minister in charge of the infrastructure sector, would bear me out that the correct approach would not be to maintain the same way of doing this, where we go design by individual design, by individual design, by individual design to the government electrical engineering department, because to get to 100,000 houses would take a very long time that way. Better is to have a range of designs, and then you can choose as the homeowner, this is the one. But they're all pre-approved. So we accelerate that process and get past that. Mr. Speaker, let me also say that when I became minister, I confronted a backlog that was quite considerable. And I know that all people who are interested in getting PV solar have heard this complaint around Barbados. Sir, we have eradicated that backlog now. We are down to the last 80 or so applications that were in the ministry. And we have now gone online. So that if you go for a PV application today, you log on, you can to the portal, you can follow your application as it moves from desk to desk. You as the potential investor, whether you are residential or whether you're commercial, can see exactly where your application is, and you are now in a position, sir, in all of the cases, bar none, since the start of this new process in April, been able to get back your information, sir, within a 4-week or 5-week period. No, sir, that's how we have transformed it. And key to this is to make sure that the other player, the Barbados Light and Power, is able to take on the electricity and can commit to purchase of that which is delivered. Now, sir, to get us to that point, there are some fundamentals that we have to do, and we got to confront these realities. First thing that has to happen, sir, is that the range of inspectorate, because we're talking about electricity, we don't want there to be mishaps and accidents. We don't want there to be electrocutions. We don't want there to be fire hazards. So and long, hopefully forever, we pass the stage where the whole country got to come to standstill because a monkey went in a substation, right? You know, Mr. Speaker, sir, so therefore the inspectors must go. But to have the inspectors to do the range of work, you need to have that quantity of inspectors. And that means, sir, that we are now in the process, in fact, not now, we have itemized what we have, and we understand what we must do by way of training courses in order to increase even as we move forward. We ain't pausing the process. Even as we move forward, we will be training more people to come into the ranks of inspector. We also have to make sure that they are not only certified and accredited, Mr. Speaker, sir, that they are not also inspectors who are doing installation. Because you don't want a man being the inspector of his own work. So that the line has to be drawn between the installer and the inspector. And that the installers also must be certified so that we know that we're dealing with people with a certain standard and who are operating in this economy to a certain standard and best practice, Mr. Speaker. And that database will be out there so that the government electrical department, charged as it is with oversight, will have that oversight. And Mr. Speaker, sir, it is only through that then that we're in a position to have the accelerated uptake. But there are obviously going to be challenges, as with any new system. And you have heard today the Honourable Member for St. George South point us spot on to the major challenge that we, give him a chance, to the major challenge that we have. That in this world today, everybody is moving in this direction. And that there will be, and there is a demand for us to get all of the necessary inputs that are necessary, because people are seeking to have their hands on solar PV all around the world, not just Barbados. Electrical utility companies are seeking to get transformers all around the world, not just Barbados, Mr. Speaker, sir. And so therefore, there's a necessity for us, even in terms of battery storage, which is fundamental to the process, because, and I'm going to come to that, it is impossible for us to do this without introducing battery storage to Barbados, and in a serious way at utility scale. Logistically, the world in which we live, as I said, is very challenged, and it is fraught with difficulty in sourcing all of these things at the time and at the pace that you want to get. It is therefore the judgment of the government that partnering once again, and I said this in the budget, with the Light and Power as the utility and their parent company, Emira, which has the scale of capital to be a sensible partner to find, so that they will then be able to go out there and help us to source what we estimate is the required 250 megawatts of battery storage that allows us to make, put us in a position where we can execute this project at the fastest possible rate. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, to be candid with Barbados, while we can go forward, and I am 100% sure that as I am speaking to you, there is an audit going on by my ministry with respect to the existing storage capacity on the island, so that we will know with certainty by Friday that which we need to have imported so that we can move forward with this. We also, Mr. Speaker, have to also look at what is necessary to modernize the grid. Because it is not just a question of where we are now, but where we want to be. It is no secret that we are beginning to see, well, first of all, let me say, this country has 58 major feeder lines. And there's no secret to the fact that of those 58, Mr. Speaker, sir, 47 of them have absolutely no challenge whatsoever. In fact, when last I saw the figures, sir, there are some feeder lines in Barbados, especially in rural Barbados, sir, that were incredibly empty. I think the lowest that I have seen, sir, there's one at 45. There's one, sir, at 98 megawatts. This is megawatts of renewable energy capacity. And each feeder line is going to be able to carry approximately 5 megawatts of capacity. So if you got 5 megawatts is 5,000 kilowatts. If you can carry 5,000 kilowatts, but you have on your line, as some do, 60 and 45 and 90, you know that those feeder lines are capable of helping us to execute the policy that the Prime Minister has put before the House. And that there are 47 in that condition, Mr. Speaker, sir, where we can, as soon as we can finalize, fine-tune the policy, begin the process of execution, so that every householder, and in rural Barbados, I sit right opposite the member for St. Andrew. In rural Barbados, in the parish of St. Andrew, where almost every householder can immediately move in the direction of having solar PV on his or her own house. I sit across from the member for St. Thomas, Mr. Speaker, sir. Same principle applies. Equally, however, there are 1 or 2 feeder lines which are closer to the 5,000 megawatts than all the others. There are about 4 of them that are in that danger zone. When I say danger zone, that zone where we have to monitor it carefully. And because we will not just be then in a position to allow each and everybody to come on, but we will have to pause the commercial people so as to allow the homeowners to get first opportunity. It is important, therefore, that we get the battery storage, which will allow for us then to allow everybody, because the battery storage basically acts as that filter. The Light and Power, the utility, will allow for there to be storage of the power generated. All like now, so power is being generated. All day long, power has been being generated. But it is not going straight into the grid anymore. It is stored until later on tonight, when the utility then decides, we as the people with responsibility for moving power across the country, dispatching power to different locations where there's a requirement for it. They got a big fete in Oysters Friday night. They will need more resources. We dispatch it. It may be sourced from a feeder line that is far from there, but moved in that direction. And Mr. Speaker, that is where we have to go, because the battery storage is the necessary accompanying technology that makes this possible. It therefore means that the Fair Trade Commission must be in a position to give us as quickly as possible the necessary tariff so that the investor, like my good friend, would be able to see a return on his investment. This is the work that has to be done, sir. But I speak holistically in this way, and I am sure that the Prime Minister will speak to the whole country, because we have come to a point where we have to understand two things. First of all, and unequivocally and unapologetically, the first call will be for the homeowners in Barbados, because we are determined as a government that on this voyage we are not going to leave our people behind, and that the homeowners in Barbados must be put in a position where they can participate in wealth creation, they can participate in a process that allows their investment, because for many of our people, sir, the only thing that they're going to buy and own in their life in terms of a serious scale of investment is their home. For many of our people, that is the major investment you will make in your life. And that must now be in a position where that can earn and pay its way for you and your family. And that wealth creation can see, in some cases, $3,000 coming back to a homeowner. In some cases, $1,000 coming back to a homeowner. $5,000, depends on the size of the house and the scale of the investment, but helping you to pay your mortgage. Taking that responsibility out of your pocket, Mr. Speaker, sir, and allowing it to be paid by the investment that you have put there. It is a circular economy, and breaking the back of the energy divide, which would otherwise take place, and what is taking place all around the world as you watch how this thing is unfolding. Making sure, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the poor people in Barbados are not once again left by the wayside to watch the wealthy parade themselves through the streets. Now, having said that, the next thing that we have to do, Mr. Speaker, sir, is to have a sensible and serious partnership with the utility. And I have said in the budget, and I say again, I feel that it is a form of foolishness that we continue to have this. I know there will always be rate hearings, because that is the nature of how this business must be done. But because there is a utility, does not mean that the utility, and an only one, does not mean that the utility must be treated as an enemy. There is only one sanitation service. They don't treat it as an enemy. There's only one major public hospital. You don't treat that as an enemy. There's only one water authority. You don't treat that as an enemy. And Mr. Speaker, sir, part of what we have to do is to find a way to devise sensible structures and partnerships that allow for this country to benefit from partnership with the utility. I say again to those who have ears to hear, to imagine a tomorrow where the Barbados Water Authority, which, as we all know, is stretched to maximum capacity in order to deliver to the rural parts of this country, because of the fact that it don't have the money for mains replacement. Not just the bad management of the last administration. It don't have the money for mains replacement. But you have mains that were laid 100 years ago that are full of holes and leaking badly. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Water Authority has to be in a position where it can earn some additional money, that it can do the kind of work that it needs to do in order to make sure that you can get water all the time in Redmond Village, St. Thomas, get water all the time in Lamins and St. Joseph, get water all the time in all the parts of St. Peter. Boscobel in particular. Now, Mr. Speaker, there is a wind project that is poised now to go into a late stage of development in St. Lucie. That project, sir, will see or is expected to see the Water Authority play a role. The Barbados Light and Power is interested in only a part of the potential scale of the investment. So there's room for other entities to come in, and you have heard the Prime Minister say, this is an opportunity for us to bring on board statutory entities in government that need to be given the opportunity to generate income so that you can take off of the backs of the people that you and I represent, Mr. Speaker, the additional responsibility of having to look for millions of dollars in order to do the things that were not done by past administrations. So that this makes wonderful good sense, therefore, if we can have an entity like the Water Authority, but they're not the only one. The Barbados Transport Board is another one where it costs large amounts of money. We like to stand up and watch the electric buses go by. I don't know if all the members in here have ever ridden on one, but I have, and it is a lovely experience, Mr. Speaker, sir. And we like, as we heard just now, we like to beat our chest and talk about how many we have, but they come at a cost. But you could retrofit the whole fleet if you found a way to allow that type of income to be generated, even where the Transport Board goes about its other normal business, because all it has done is to buy into the fact that the sun is going to shine tomorrow. And that because the sun is going to shine, there will be money generated for it. Makes wonderful good sense. The University of the West Indies is another one, because we stood in this house, Mr. Speaker, and we saw, I'm mindful, we stood in this house and we saw a Minister of Finance callously and cold-bloodedly come in here and bring an end to the dreams and the hopes and the aspirations of the people that you represent and I. Tell them that there will be no more free education, full stop, done with that. We had to reinstitute it as the first order of business in this Parliament in 2018, Mr. Speaker. But it comes at a cost, and therefore it makes wonderful good sense to allow for the university also to be a partner, and that they can too be in a position where wealth is generated simply because of the fact that the wind will blow tomorrow and the sun will shine. And that's what this is about. And so therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you for your indulgence. I know I've come to that point where I must stop, but I
You know
want...
that. You're aware of that.
I'm aware of that, sir, and I'm eternally grateful to you. But Mr. Speaker, sir, I think you would agree that this is a very important topic. And I just simply want to say in closing, beyond my expression of gratitude, that this is an idea whose time has come, and I want the people of this country to feel a sense of pride that they can now look at the grandfather of the trade union movement in Barbados and see its participation on behalf of the people who it represents in this important sector. They can look at the National Oil Company, which is the Barbados's energy investment, and see that it is now in the forefront of the economic activity in this sector, and they can feel a sense of pride that they are now in the realm of being the only people in the world who, as homeowners, have access, as of right, by their elected government, to being able to get the PV systems and renewable energy systems at their homes. And this government, sir, will do everything in its power to remove every obstacle to make sure that this right that is bestowed on the people of Barbados is a right that is a lived reality and not a theoretical idea. I am obliged to you.
Honourable Member for St. James South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I really want to congratulate all of my colleagues that have spoken today. It has certainly been a tremendous education for those of us who've had the opportunity to listen, and it has provided us with a greater understanding of the dynamics that surround the things that we do as a government and how it impacts on the daily lives of Barbadians. One of the things that has excited me, I think one of the most exciting programs for me has been the Smart Energy program and this housing program, because I believe it has the tremendous power to transform Barbados and to take Barbados and Barbadians to new places where we can look forward to a life where we are able to fit in better to a global community that is advancing at many levels. One of the challenges for small island states, 300,000 people, 166 square miles, is how do you keep building capacity and opportunity for your citizens, for your enterprises to be able to grow and develop when you have limited resources, you have limited opportunities in terms of your trade, and you have so many factors that keep pressing against your economy. And I think that this government has shown tremendous creativity in looking at what are some of the opportunities. It reminds me of that term, what is it you have in your hand? And you take that which is in your hand, that which is in your grasp, and you become innovative with it, you become creative with it, and in so doing, you come up with ways to manage difficult situations. Now, this particular program, Mr. Speaker, when we look, for example, at the issue of how we are going to be able to provide housing in this country, this has been a tremendous challenge to us for many, many, many years. And one of the things that we have had to deal with is how are we going to address all of these problems that were ably listed by the Honourable Member for St. James Central, that were left behind, that need to be addressed and addressed quickly, while at the same time responding to new demands that are on the horizon. So in putting forward this particular approach to getting housing for people and adding the Smart Energy program to revolutionize how we provide our electricity has been really a good effort by this government. And what is it we have hoped to achieve by so doing? Sir, in my constituency, access to housing has been a tremendous problem for many, many young people and many families. Overcrowding has been a severe pressure, causing dysfunction and stress within families. And therefore, this program by the Honourable Member for St. George South in the provision of 10,000 houses is a very welcome project to this country and certainly to my constituency in St. James South, where you have large families who are in urgent need of relief, where young people are eager to move out and be able to get their own affordable housing so that they can continue to build their families. But sir, this is here not just to relieve the housing issue. This housing program is something that is here to help revive the Barbadian economy, and married to the Smart Energy project, which we've already started working on, is going to make a tremendous difference to the opportunity for jobs, for the opportunities for entrepreneurs to be able to start businesses, so that we are able to create again that promise of hope for a future. So how does 10,000 houses help us to do that, sir? One, we must remember that under the Dems, since 2008, from the time they got in 2008, the then housing minister used to berate and sought to degrade small contractors in this country. Now, this is not to say that small contractors, some of them don't have issues with performance, but all do not. Many of them have been able to do good work. It was only later that we discovered that that was a prelude to allow for the removal of small contractors from out of the bulk of work that government is able to provide, which was provided under the Barbados Labour Party, to be able to bring in larger companies and fewer companies to take charge of the housing opportunities in this country. And what was the impact of that, sir? That thousands of persons who used to work in the construction industry, who worked with small contractors, then found themselves unemployed. That small contractors found that they could not get business in this country, and so many of them lost their equipment, they lost their workers, and as a result, many of them then found themselves in severe financial difficulties. And sir, this was to decimate the construction industry as we had built it up when we were last in office, sir. What some people don't realize When we talk about the hardships that we're experiencing now in this country, and we talk about the hardship that businesses have had, some people don't recognize that in the housing sector in particular, that they have been out of work for 12 years. You're not talking about 2 years in COVID. You're not talking about a few years with the Dems. You're talking about 12 years in which they were unable to get business. And sir, when you are seeking now to revive that industry, when you are seeking to revive that sector, a program of 10,000 houses is a tremendous lifeline to them. What is critical for us as a government is to effectively manage this project in such a way that we're able not only to revive but transform construction in this country, to make sure people are using the latest technologies, to make sure that they have the opportunity to learn about the new approaches to building, etc. That we're able to train young people to build up their skills in construction so that you can use this particular housing program to be able to transform and give opportunity to people to live again. And sir, that is why this particular program has been so important. I really want to commend the honourable member who has responsibility for it, for taking this particular project and looking at how he can build on what previous housing ministers under our government have done and seek to sort of make it come to a reality, because it has been having challenges with the COVID and access to materials and things like that. So now, once we are able to see that we can use this program not only to provide housing, but to actually revive a sector, then it is important that we understand how far it can go if it is properly managed. So for example, if you have 10,000 houses and we are able to include a large number of small contractors, what that means, Mr. Speaker, is that each of those small contractors are going to need somebody to handle their accounts. Each of them are going to need a truck driver and trucks. Each of them is going to need a foreman, a general manager, and so on. And so you will be able to provide work, not just for artisans at the bottom, but a lot of our young people who have studied across the UE system, who maybe have studied overseas or studied at the community college, etc., will be able to use their certification to be able to work with all of these small contractors and enable them to do good business. And that way, we are going to create more citizens with the purchasing power now that can go out and purchase goods and services across the economy and therefore give the economy a wonderful shot in the arm. So it wouldn't be just the artisans like the tilers and plumbers and carpenters, etc., but also the professionals as well who are able to get work within a booming construction industry. They are going to be able, Mr. Speaker, to be able to start building demand within the economy, because this is going to be very important. Now, one of the things about effective execution of a project like this, sir, when people have been out of practice for a long time, I don't know if it's ever happened to you, sir, but if you haven't practiced something for 12 years, you get a little rusty. So one of the things that would be needed is to be able to put in the kind of project support for those who are now re-engaging after a long period away from the industry, to ensure that they're producing at a level of quality, to ensure that they're building according to the plan, because at the end of the day, you don't want to make the first home of a Barbadian a guinea pig for people who are now trying to find their feet in terms of their profession. That is why it's going to be important to give the necessary project management support to ensure the quality. But further to that would be the collaboration among ministries, because indeed, this is not just a one ministry project. In the Ministry of Energy and Business Development, the energy side will be partnering on the smart energy. But on the business development side would be the BNSI, the Barbados National Standards Institute. One of the things that they have done is they have developed building standards. And why were these necessary? Because it is important that we start to get Barbadian contractors and artisans to build to the highest level of global standards when it comes to construction, so that when people invest their money in something as expensive in a mortgage to be able to get their own home, one of the biggest investments they will ever make, it is important that we are able to deliver quality to them. And I'm happy to report, Mr. Speaker, that the BNSI has done that. They've completed those building standards which are to guide the contractors in how they build. And this is important for another reason, not just to give a quality product, but because, sir, climate change necessitates that there's climate adaptation in this country, and that means changing the way in which we build our homes so that our homes are climate resilient. If it is one fight that this government has had from day one when we came into office on the international scene, Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade officers, both here and abroad, have been fighting in the various international fora over the issue of getting support for small island developing states like ours to be able to get access to funding for climate adaptation, climate mitigation, and to be able to build resilient houses. Failure to build climate resilient houses will mean a tremendous loss to the economy. Because once your roof goes, all of your contents are going to be destroyed. Then you are going to have people having to start from scratch because everything that they have worked for has been destroyed. But if you build in a climate resilient way, where you're able to use the hurricane straps, where you're able to build in a way that you're able to lock the house onto that foundation, then, sir, when you are faced with a Category 3 or Category 4 hurricane, the capacity of your housing stock to maintain the shock will aid in quicker recovery of the economy, because your people would not be devastated and find themselves having lost tremendous assets because we were not able to be resilient. And sir, this is why it is important that partnership between the Ministry of Energy and Business Development and the Ministry of Housing to ensure the standards and ensure the climate resilience in order to ensure we produce quality housing for our people. Now, sir, along with this, and there have been questions raised in the public space, there's been quite a national conversation on the issue of the cost of housing. And unfortunately, sir, with the impact that we've had, COVID, the war with Ukraine, shipping logistics, we have seen the cost of building materials rising and making it more and more challenging for us to be able to provide housing that people can afford. And again, here I want to congratulate the Honourable Member for St. George South in having been able to maintain a position with the housing solutions that we will be providing, keeping them at a range where a person can afford $800 a month as a part of a mortgage, $1,000 a month as a part of a mortgage. Because in the private sector, it is very difficult to get housing that will come in at that price. This is going to make a tremendous difference to home ownership in this country. But sir, as we grapple right now with the challenge of increased costs for housing and the increased cost of living, we're hearing in the national conversation the whole issue about whether or not we need to look at increasing wages. And while that would be wonderful if your economy was strong and climbing, whether you would want to engage that at a time when the GDP growth has been good and your enterprises have been flourishing, having a demand like that coming at a time when the economy is struggling and we're struggling to recover, It may be a challenge for the enterprises as they engage with labor to be able to come up with how are they going to even begin to afford to respond to increasing wages without increasing productivity. That productivity is going to be important. Because the truth is, COVID and all that has gone on has imperiled all the sectors, all the factors within the economy, government, households, and our businesses. And therefore, what we have to do is that the three entities have to sit down together to work through what is the best way that we can navigate these challenges to be able to ensure that we can still keep going forward, including our housing program, including our smart energy program. So one of the things that, for me, and that's why I love the excitement of the marriage of the two things, the housing and the smart energy, is the fact that if people are able to engage in the renewable energy and they're able to save on their light bill, one of the things that will do is provide a household with more income that it can respond to inflationary conditions. That would be one of the measures that would help. And this is why accelerating the access to being able to put the PV panels on the roof is going to be an important part of that response to give households a chance to increase their disposable income and therefore manage the impact of inflation. The second thing too, sir, is that we will have to go back to our roots. In the old days when our seniors didn't have money and didn't have enough to do things, they turned to, that's the term they used to use, they would turn to and do something. They would use what was in hand. And sometimes they would turn to agricultural skills. And that is why the program that is being managed by the Honourable Member for St. Philip South is so key, because in getting householders to get back to agriculture, this is how we will put food on our tables. This, again, will be a coping mechanism that people are going to be able to use to help them weather the storm of increasing inflation. And then it is about increasing your skills. No one is going to stay at the level where they can only afford a mortgage of $800. Over your career, people will find that as we continue to grow the economy, they can get career advancements. They can transition to new businesses where they can get better jobs, get better pay. All of this will make a difference to the type of home they can afford and how quickly they can deal with their mortgages. And this is why it is important for Barbadians to pay attention to the number of initiatives that are being put in place by the government to help them do just that. The National Transformation Initiative is there to assist the average Barbadian using the online platforms to acquire skills that can help them to increase their value per hour and, as a result, earn more. And therefore, this is one of the ways that young people can go about increasing their income to be able to be a part of this housing revolution. So very important. The Advanced Youth Corps is another place in which they're learning skills. SJPI is providing them with skills. And these are the opportunities that people need to take on board if they're going to be able to afford a home. And the last thing I want to share is there needs to be a revolution, sir, in not only how we deal with energy, how we provide housing, but I think that there has to be a revolution in how we as Barbadians look at how we engage our national space. That there needs to be a change in our attitudes, where we begin to think about taking responsibility, where we begin to think about partnership in order to get things done, whether it's at the community level or the national level. I want to encourage every Barbadian. There is going to be room for you in the energy sector. That it will not only have space for the big businesses with the big bucks that can put down the energy farms, but there's going to be room for people who have some dollars, who want to be able to invest and be a part of that energy revolution. But what is going to be needed for you to participate? One of the things, Mr. Speaker, is that Barbadians have to understand that they have to learn to manage risk, that they have to be willing to take risks, that the only way they can benefit from the tremendous opportunities which this government is putting on the table in so many different sectors is for them to understand how they can better participate and take risks. And one of the programs that we've put on the ground to assist them in that preparation is financial literacy training. It is going to be one of the most revolutionary things that we will do that will enable Barbadians to participate and take part in the many opportunities which this government is providing. Because failure to get that change in our financial literacy and building people who understand what it is to work together, make money together, invest together, get into co-ops, etc., buy bonds, buy shares, start businesses. If we do not build that culture within the Barbadian personality, what will happen is that all these wonderful opportunities will emerge, and the same people who were getting all of the opportunities in the past will get the opportunities in the present and get the opportunities in the future, because we have not changed how we engage the Barbadian space and Barbadian opportunities. So I want to encourage every single Barbadian, get involved in the financial literacy training. Get the information on the Smart Energy program and prepare yourself to be able to participate. Persons who are keen on getting their own homes, this is the time to start looking at how you can generate additional income by using your skills to do extra beyond what you're getting in terms of wages, and be able to start looking at saving, so that when the time comes and you get that telephone call saying that you have been approved for a home in Barbados, you have what is necessary at your disposal and at the disposal of your family to say, yes, I can take up this opportunity. I can move my family now to its own space, and we can advance and live better as a family because we're able to make progress in this Barbados. So I want to encourage everyone. I want to encourage all those of you who are mentors to others. Let us work with our Barbadian citizens. Let us teach. Let us educate. Let us nurture. Let us coach them in taking up the opportunities that will be available, so that they too can be a part of the vital future of Barbados and profit and benefit from all of the programs which this government is working so hard to put on the table, that all of us can have a better future. I'm obliged to you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable St. George South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to wrap up this debate with respect to the lease of 14 acres of land to BNOC for the construction of a 5 megawatt photovoltaic plant with storage. And I want to thank those members who contributed. 2 members, member for St. James Central and St. James South. And to end by saying to the chamber, and to you, Mr. Speaker, and to those listeners, this government has taken on board the need to swiftly move the goalposts to ensure that not only we can address and deal with the rising fuel prices, but that we can be a leader in renewable energy innovations and initiatives within the region, with a view that our people on these shores can benefit as we seek to build out this economy and this country on all pillars of sustainable development. While I mentioned the whole aspect of the silent housing revolution, lands allocated, whether it's for renewable energy, it is for housing, it is for agriculture. That's the role of the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance as we seek to push the various frontiers to give our people opportunity. And I want to say, as I close, Mr. Speaker, that within the next 3 years of this term of office, we will see a number of initiatives emanating from the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance being led by whichever minister carries that portfolio, whether it is land for agriculture, whether it is land for renewable energy, whether it is land for housing. There's one common thread, that our people of this country will have a stake in whatever developmental opportunities we embarked upon as a government. Again, as I close, I wish BNOC and the Minister for Energy, Member for St. James Central, every success as we construct this plan to be the second person as a government, as a state-owned entity, to lead the charge in building a photovoltaic plant that can see the start of what we consider the transformation process and allowing us to reach that goal by 2030 of being fossil fuel free or 100% renewable country. And with those few words, Mr. Speaker and the Chamber, I beg that this resolution now pass.
The question is that this resolution do now pass. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it. This resolution stands passed. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, we've come to the end of today's sitting, and I therefore beg to move the adjournment of the House until Tuesday, the 24th of May at 10 a.m.
Question is that this honorable chamber stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 24th day of May at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it. This honorable chamber stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 24th day of May at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.